Oh yeah, it's another one of those. You know what I'm talking about? That time when we do one of these. Y'all ready to answer catechumen questions for the next 4 hours? Oh yeah. What's up?
I just had a quick question for you. So, a friend of mine, a Catholic friend of mine, we were discussing Unum Sanctum, and especially after the debate that you had with Tim. So my question is with the Council of Chalcedon, the canons where it talks about how clerics are pretty much forbidden to participate or be involved in civil matters, like being a civil authority,
Right.
for example. Are these are those canons, especially the ones in Carthage that address this, are they reversible? Are they binding? And are they infallible?
I don't believe that any church laws are necessarily infallible. I think they're normative and they're binding. And it really depends on what kind of a church law. So, for example, you could have a church law that relates to um, something moral like murder. Okay. Even if it's not, quote, infallible, the principle within that canon might be unchanging because the penalties or the problems with murder never change, right? But you might have a canon that deals with what to do in a certain region, and over time, wars happen, and that province or that region doesn't exist anymore. So, how do we keep a canon that applies to a town that doesn't exist anymore? So, in other words, it's a little more nuanced than that, depending upon what the canon is dealing with. I would say, in the case of specifically clerics and civil duties, the canon is actually based on a theological dogmatic principle that no, they can't. That could never change. You could never have a situation where it's appropriate and right for clerics to be civil authorities and rulers. Now, that has sometimes been violated, and even in the East, that's happened.
Right.
That doesn't mean that it's right.
Right. That's one point that he brought up, because we were talking about the Pope having temporal and spiritual power. Mm-hmm. He also brought up, it was kind of a tu quoque in a way, because he brought up the East also having done the same thing, where you had bishops basically getting rid of kings or reinstating them.
Well, that's not the same thing as having temporal supremacy. The church can excommunicate a wicked ruler. So I don't know what you mean by getting rid of them. What we mean is, like, there have been, I think, like Serbian or maybe even Russian bishops at times who, like, went out into battle, right? That's not supposed to happen, because that's a civil office. Going to war, being soldiers, it's not proper for a bishop to go to war. But that's not the same thing as, like, the church. The church is who coronates the king or the emperor. So they are the one because that's a higher authority. They invest or coronate the king. That authority comes from the higher. But that doesn't mean that the bishops then become world rulers.
Right. That was a point I made to him, because Unum Sanctum basically it makes the Pope the church and the state.
Exactly.
He is an autocrat.
Exactly. That's the last paragraph. Yes.
Right. That's what I brought up to him. And okay, my other question is, and I'll make it quick. So they claim this authority, but doesn't, after looking at, doesn't the whole issue with Cyprus having and being granted autocephaly just destroy the entire argument of this Pope having all this authority? I mean, I think that in itself, the Church of Cyprus does it in, and that's in 400 AD.
And it's an ecumenical council, which they claim to adhere to.
Right, correct.
Yes, it's like one of the many kill shots. I agree.
Okay, that's all I've got.
No, great. Those are absolutely great questions. Yeah, really solid questions. Yeah, I think the reason for the separation of powers is precisely because of the dangers and the duties involved in being a soldier or a head of state, right? And so when you get bishops and clerics as heads of state, it's a nightmare. And the church early on saw that would be a problem, and they forbade it in the canons. And so just because canons are flexible, we believe in the spirit of the law. We're not Pharisees and Talmudists that are worshipers of the letter of the law. The purpose of canon law is for man's good. What does Jesus say about the Sabbath, right? The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. The purpose of the laws is man's good. We don't worship law for the sake of law, right? And we also don't dismiss church law because we're anarchists or revolutionaries. So thousands of years of church law is going to have some degree of flexibility, especially when there are canons that don't make any sense anymore. Like clerics can't ride a horse. Why? Well, because in the Middle Ages, that was a sign of nobility and rulership and authority of the state, reinforcing the principle of the law that clerics are not members of the state. They're not civil rulers. It's that simple. It's not like super complex. Now, there have been situations, yes, in the East and in the West, where at times bishops take on temporal power. And that's not ideal. It's not supposed to happen. But it's not the same as the Bishop of Rome. Let's take a Serbian bishop in the year 1200 who ends up, for whatever reason, going to war against Muslims. Okay, is that right? No. But did it happen? Okay. But did he bind everybody to salvation for not accepting his kingly power? I doubt it. Dude, I mean, this is night and day. Like, the Pope is literally saying, like, if you don't accept me as the Quetzalcoatl, you're damned. Even a Serbian bishop who goes out to fight is not going to say, everyone who doesn't fight's damned. I mean, this is like insane levels, obviously, of like just arrogant pride. It's obviously Antichrist too.